Hey guys, Henning and Morten from FlippedNormals. In this video, we are going to be taking you through one of your very first sculpts in ZBrush. It's going to be based on this very eloquent cave troll from Lord of the Rings, and we're just going to be taking it very slowly. So, you know, if you've already been using ZBrush for like 2 years and you're complaining that we're going too slow, this video is not for you. It's meant for people who are very fresh to
just getting into sculpting.
Before we get started with that, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button, just so you get notified every single time we put out a new video. We are going to be starting off the project by hitting the comma key. And then under projects, we have some Dynamesh spheres. We are going to be using the Dynamesh sphere 128. So simply just double click this, and this is going to load up this project here. This just means that we have a sphere already set up for us, and we can start working on this. We are going to be using Dynamesh as well, which simply just means that when we're sculpting like this, and then you see we run out of resolution, we hit Shift F to get this, and we control drag outside, we are now going to be remeshing what we're working with.
So it's a good way for us to constantly add more resolution to our sphere.
So this setup here is going to be very nice and simple. We are going to be enabling perspective, and we're going to be disabling the floor, because that's just annoying in a way. Then we are also going to be using simply like 2 brushes or so. We're probably going to be sticking mostly to the clay builder brush, but then we're also going to be dealing a little bit with the move brush, which you can access by hitting B, M, V. The move brush just allows you to move stuff around, and the clay brush, which is B, C, B, clay buildup, allows you to work on top of this. With these 2 brushes, you can sculpt basically anything you want to.
Yeah, it's pretty... You know, we get a lot of questions about that, and I think especially as a beginner, you tend to have a tendency to find the magic brush. There is no magic brush, and we try to keep it as simple as possible, just to speed up the workflow, but also because, you know, you don't really need a lot of brushes to get started.
This is the stuff we're sitting with day in, day out when we're sculpting.
Yeah.
So before doing this as well, we are just going to be disabling the alpha. This just makes the brush a bit softer. You can see here, it's a bit harsh. It has a lot of texture to it. We are just going to be turning alpha off, and then you get this way nicer stroke.
So a quick thing you might have noticed there is we can change the brush size, the draw size of the brush. You don't necessarily have to go up into the menu that's highlighted. You can just get this by hitting the S key. That is a shortcut for just that menu.
That's for size.
Yeah, and it's a really quick way to change the brush size.
Then we also going to be enabling symmetry by hitting the X key or just clicking this button. So we're just building this up very slowly. We are going to be starting off just by getting some cavities for the eye, the mouth, and maybe the nose as well. So
and before you totally panic about the references, this is a program called PureRef, pure as in pure and ref as in reference, that just lives on top of our UI. It's a free software that you can just go and download by just Googling PureRef.
It's absolutely fantastic, and we talk about this way too much, but it's really that good. So let's just get started with this. We are going to be holding down the Alt key just so we can get the opposite effect. If a regular just sculpting with the tablet pushes outwards, then the Alt key pushes inwards. So this is just going to give us just some holes which we can just keep sculpting. I'm just sculpting in circular patterns here just to get this nice little rounded feel. And this is going to be basically where we're going to be putting the eyes into it.
Yeah, and many people have ask us like, what do we need in terms of like a tablet and mouse? Is it possible to sculpt with a mouse? And generally we just default to no. I mean, technically it is possible to sculpt with a mouse, but you're just going to get a way better result using a tablet.
Yeah.
So, you know, starting off with something like a cheap or cheaper Wacom Bamboo is always a good option.
Yeah, they're pretty damn good as well. So just hold on the Alt key and just sculpting in some nostrils as well, where the nose is going to go. And then we can just not hold on the Alt key and we can just work over the surface a little bit.
Yeah, so this alternating between Alt and not holding Alt is, you know, the bread and butter of doing this kind of sculpting.
Yeah, and if you are unsure how ZBrush actually works, like if you don't have the basics down, we have a free tutorial on this as well on our YouTube channel, which is available for everyone.
Yeah, just search for Introduction to ZBrush for Beginners, I believe.
Yeah. Hold on the Alt key as well, and now we're just going to get some screaming mouth because he is very mad. And if it takes you some time to get down to strokes, don't worry about it. You know, this just takes some time to get used to in the beginning. Now we can also see if we hit the Shift F key that we're running out of resolution here. So what we can do is we're working with Dynamesh now. We can control drag outside. And now you can see that we get more resolution in this area.
Yeah, so that's just you hold down the control key and click on your canvas and drag, and that
release
makes new topology on your mesh.
And then we can just put in some basic skeletal features. This is just going to be some cheekbones. So we can just sculpt this on top, and then we can continue this further back. The more you know about anatomy, the easier this is going to be.
And, seeing as this is probably your first or one of your first sculpts, dealing with a lot of anatomy on top of, shortcuts and getting a handle for how ZBrush actually works can be quite challenging.
Yeah.
But it's really about practice. Like, the more you do these kinds of studies, the more you look into anatomy, the more second nature it just becomes.
So we can also give him a tiny little ear around here as well. Just teeny tiny ear.
Just a tiny troll ear.
Tiny troll ear. And so far you can see we're only using one brush. We're sculpting out with this and then just in by holding the Alt key. Just very nice and simple. Then we can also sculpt some bones going over his eyes as well. Just with the tablet, just moving over like this. I always try to get the feeling down as early as possible for what I want. Like, this guy here is a bad guy. So, we're just sculpting down so that he looks a bit bad, like this. Because you don't want to, if you're doing this, he's going to look way too kind and scared. So I just prefer to get the feeling I want the character to have right in the beginning.
And as a basic sculpting principle or basic design principle, when it comes to creating a character like this, obviously we're going for something that's like menacing, disgusting, not something very happy, not someone you want as a friend.
No.
So you have to treat the strokes and the way you're sculpting in the same way you sort of feel about the character. You want it to be unpleasant. You want it to be a harder kind of character. So it's very important that you try to translate that into your brushes as well.
Yeah. That takes some time to get used to, but you'll get there. And then we're just getting in a basic jawline for him. I'm always rotating around quite a lot as well, just so you can see it from all angles.
It's actually interesting when we look at sort of like sped up versions of our self-sculpting. There's a lot of going in, going out, rotating around, so it can be kind of hard to look at time lapses of it. But as a really good tip, especially when you're starting out, is not trying to focus on one area too much, but also viewing your work at a distance, because that just helps you evaluate the piece a little bit better. It's easy to get caught up in the details if you just look at the nostrils for like 2 hours.
Yeah, it really is. And also don't worry about speed. Really, if you're struggling with getting to this level at what we currently have, don't worry about it. Just take your time. It takes time to become a decent sculptor.
Yeah.
So let's just use the move brush now. Now we have some elements, and let's just start to move them around. B, N, and V for brush, move, and V.
Move.
And then we're just going to look at a reference, and we're just going to see if we can make the proportions just a bit better here. So first we need just to move the nose up a little bit, and then we're going to move the eyes down a little bit, like so.
Yeah, so like when you're initially just putting in the first kind of landmarks, they don't have to be spot on. The important thing is just that they exist.
Yeah.
Once you go in with your move brush, you can always tweak things around. So that's the beautiful thing about sculpting digitally. It's a lot easier to manipulate than if you're sculpting in real life. It
really is. Now you can see from his side that he's going a bit, he's just looking downward. And this is simply just because we haven't really looked at, you're looking at a sphere. We haven't really at all thought about his volumes. So what we can do, just getting a big brush size, look at the side view. You can snap to the front and side views by holding the shift key and just moving it around. That's really handy. So now we can just move this thing entire around here like this.
Yeah, he was missing a bit of a chin and a jaw.
Yeah. Those little things. Pretty important when he's a big menacing monster. So I'm just trying to get this nice curve of the mouth as well. Because now you can see it goes like this around, and I just want to move this in here as well. Also, if you've been sculpting a little bit in ZBrush beforehand, you're noticing that there's a brush called the smooth brush, which you can actually hold on a shift key. We aren't really using that brush at all in this case. It just removes the foam for it like this, so we really aren't going to be sticking with this brush at all.
The smooth brush is excellent exactly for what Henning mentioned there. You want to destroy detail. You want to take things back a step. Smooth brush is excellent for that because it just allows you to basically erase things. But it can also sometimes it can be a little bit detrimental that it actually smooths out your details too much. So you just want to be a little careful with using it.
So now you can see that already now we're getting some character into it. Obviously, it's still incredibly rough, but you can still see that, we're getting some of this character in here. And what I'm looking at now is I'm just looking at the shape of the eye. I'm just trying to get this shape here to be a little bit more true to the reference.
Yeah, he really has like this kind of fish eyes that stick out a lot and very deep cheeks, big chin and big jaw, and very, very thick brow bones.
The more I'm learning about sculpting as well, the more I'm simplifying my approach. I used to always be like, you need all the crazy brushes. It's always like the next brush. But here you can see, we're just already getting something which resembles it, and we've been using literally 2 brushes for this entire thing. So even when like getting something like the ears as well, we don't have to sculpt it in. We can just use the move brush. Use the move brush just to get this shape right. And, just really keep it simple. The simpler you can keep your tools, the better it is, because that means you're not getting confused by the tool. Because honestly, ZBrush is really confusing for a beginner. Like if you're struggling right now and you kind of like want to throw it out the window, like we get you.
Yeah.
We're there like daily.
Yeah, you take a little bit of a break from ZBrush, you come back to it after a few weeks, you've forgotten half of it already.
Yeah, that happens.
It is something you just have to keep on top of, unfortunately.
What I'm trying to do as well is also keeping really clean shapes. Like here, I'm trying to keep this as a nice curve, and I'm trying to keep this here as a nice curve as well. So you have the eyes going out and then meeting this point, and then just having this as a nice curve. Just keeping everything as nice, simple curves. That's going to make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
But also look at reference. Whatever it is you're doing, just look at reference all the time. Because that is probably the number one beginner mistake we're seeing, that people aren't being true to reference. This is also such a cool design, like this super late 90s, early 2000s CG as well. It holds up really well even today.
Yeah, it does. It's like when you look at the original Jumanji, ILM did an amazing job at that as well.
Now, one area which is really bothering me now is this region here. I would just want to refine this. So I'm just going to go back to the clay brush, BCB. And then we can just hold on the Alt key and just working this region here up a little bit. Just hold on the Alt key and just sculpting this down, just making these nice clean shapes. I noticed that we haven't added teeth or eyeballs or anything here. Like, we're just keeping it simple. We haven't even added the eyelids yet. We're just really keeping this simple, because if the sculpt doesn't work at this stage, then it's never going to work. Like if you start adding fancy stuff right away, then you're already too far. Like this shape here is already a bit too advanced. So I'm just gonna simplify it a bit down, just making a nice strong shape.
That's the nice thing about using a brush, is that you can vary your stroke by varying your pressure. Yeah. So the harder you press, the more aggressive the stroke is going to be, and vice versa.
And we just keep going constantly between sculpting additively, meaning you're sculpting like this, and sculpting subtractively, which means you're sculpting like this. It's kind of like I'm sculpting like this, like now, and then I'm just holding on the Alt key and sculpting in, and then not holding down the Alt key and sculpting out. It's just a constant thing.
Yeah, and really getting into sculpting is just... it's a lifelong pursuit, I think.
It really is.
Because you're constantly learning things about form, how things go well together on a face, how to make interesting contrast between the shapes. So there's just something to learn at every step of the way.
So what I recommend you doing is that, if you're working on this sculpt now and it's really one of your first sculpts, make sure you save the progress. Make sure you save the tool somewhere or screenshots of it, and you go back to it later on, because then you're going to be able to see your insane progress. Because it's really easy to become demotivated after a while.
Yeah.
We can also just re-Dynamesh it, which is this control drag outside, and then we can just see we get some slightly more even topology. So already now we're getting to a point where, we're getting good clean shapes. And this again is after like 2 brushes. Just getting some slight more definition here into it. Now I'm just holding on the shift key just to smooth out the shapes a little bit. If that's up to you if you want to do that. I want to get this brow thing here, whatever this is. It's pretty funky in terms of anatomy, but I just want to get some of this in here.
Kind of made up stuff.
Yeah, it looks like they have a freestyle anatomy a little bit here.
But, it looks pretty cool. So
it looks like he can ram his head into something really hard. So it's like you wouldn't see this on like monkeys or whatever it is, but they're also not ramming their heads into stuff. So we also have a video called Sculpting Like a Pro in ZBrush, which goes over sculpting technique more specifically, which talks about a bit more about how to build up volume, because there is no way we can cover everything you need in this quick video. This is really like an introduction to it, and then you just need to refine this for more advanced techniques. We can also just go to the side view, again hold down the shift key, and then we can use BMV for move, and we can just make this a bit cleaner. I like to exaggerate some of these shapes a little bit, just so they read a bit better. Maybe the back of his head is also a bit too crazy now. We're not going to do any neck or anything like that. We're just going to keep it simple. Move his entire shape in like this. So it's also really important to look at the head shape and not just look at the face. Because if you're just looking at the face, then it's incredibly easy to have a beautifully sculpted ears and eyes and whatnot, but you have really terrible silhouettes for your character.
And that's kind of reminiscent of when people do portraiture drawing in the beginning. Oftentimes they don't have the ability to perceive volume and perspective yet.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to get caught up in the contrasting details, like drawing the eyes or doing the hair, doing the mouth, because that's the thing that you're the most trained biologically, from picking out. But the more you do this, the better you become at perceiving form and shape.
Give me some slightly too pointy eyes here. It's a bit too goblin-like. I want to make it a bit rounder. But again, only with the move brush. Because once this is working, then you can go in and you can really add details with other brushes as well. One brush you might want to check out is called Damn Standard, which is amazing. I don't really think we're going to be using it here, but that's one you can use to really get sharpness to things. But honestly, for the majority of all the sculpting I ever do, I stick to 3 brushes. And that's not just us, that's the majority of all sculptors out there. There are some which use some fancy ones, but there are far too many brushes in ZBrush. They should really reduce them, categorize them.
You can load them in if you need them.
Yeah, exactly.
And also just in terms of pure anatomy on the face, there's so much to cover. And I think one of the only ways to really get better at it is just to do face studies. One thing is obviously doing a creature, but another thing is also doing a person. And the more you do, I think the more you do people, the more you get sort of grounded in real anatomy. And that really teaches you how to break the rules of anatomy and then create something like a cave troll. I've
really learned how to sculpt a cave troll by sculpting real humans.
Yeah.
Now we can sculpt the eyelids as well. And I prefer to do this by using actually a new brush, Standard Brush, BST. Standard Brush is fantastic and is often very overlooked. This is very simple. Clay buildup does a lot of fancy stuff, that builds up volumes. Standard Brush simply takes the points and just moves them out. So very simple stuff. You just do a stroke and you get it. It's kind of like a pen brush in some other software if you're just doing with 2D. It doesn't do anything fancy at all.
That's what you need.
Keep stuff simple. We have some more tutorials as well on sculpting realistic faces, which might be really useful for you, because then we cover a lot of the things which we aren't covering here, specific anatomy and all that. So in order to create these shapes, you can see here, just quickly, sort of rather slowly, just working over the shape, and it's incredibly low poly. You can see here we have 47,000 points. It's very, very low poly.
And often one of the things we talk about here as well is that if you try to keep it low poly for as long as you can, that really forces you to not look at the details. And it's a good exercise to, take with you. It creates a good foundation for your sort of sculpting career going forward, I think.
Yeah. Everyone is raging over ZBrush. Like, oh, you can have like a billion polys in it. Yeah, it's irrelevant. What you need like 1 million and do it well. Mm-hmm. We can also use a standard brush just a bit more, just to get some more definition. For instance, we want like a nice little fold going down here. You can see in some of these references. Like here, we have this nice little fold called a Nasolabial Fold. Let's just do it from the same angle. And then we can just hold on the Alt key and we can just sculpt it down like this.
It's almost like you're cutting into the mesh now.
Yeah, exactly. This is something you see a lot in humans as well. Basically, every single human has this to some degree or another. So we can just sculpt in. You see another wrinkle here as well. I just want to create some light supporting shapes for this. Now you can just see he's just getting a little bit more realistic. We can go over the nose as well with the damn standard, also with the standard brush, and just really working up the shape, moving in and moving out as well. Trying to get some sharpness of the lips as well, the corner of the mouth.
And that's again where you want to go in and out, evaluate what you're doing so that you never end up in a place where part of your mesh is a lot more detailed than other parts.
No. So now we're getting to a pretty decent level in terms of features. Now we can disable Dynamesh, and we can just simply hit Control D. We go under Geometry, and then we go under Dynamesh, and Dynamesh, disable this, and then we can start subdividing it. We can do this by hitting Control D, and now you can see that we increase the poly count by 4, and we get another subdivision level. This means that we can now go up and down in the levels by going here, or hitting the D and Shift D button. You can divide it by hitting Control D as well to get even more resolution. This is one of the main strengths of ZBrush, because it means that you can just keep on going and get really, really crisp resolutions. So back to the clay buildup brush, and now we can just go in and we can just work up some of these volumes. The way I'm smoothing it out now, you can see that it looks kind of like I'm smoothing it. I'm just holding on the Alt key and just working across the shape. I'm working like this across the shape, just with a really low pressure.
But importantly, still using the clay buildup brush.
Yes.
Because this way we kind of ensure that we stick to the form and we don't destroy it too much with the smooth brush.
Yeah, it's very important. Only disable Dynamesh once your main parts are ready. So like if you need to add like a neck to this and a body, that's too late now. Then you gotta delete your subdivision levels and remake it into Dynamesh. So my way of working with this, I like to really work across the form. I want some more volume here. I'm not gonna work like this. I'm going to work like this. This is just my personal preference, but it really means I'm controlling the shape quite a lot. And you get this really nice texture as well. So I'm considering this like a refinement pass, where I'm just really going over everything and just refining it. And the thing is, with a sculpt like this, you can keep working forever with it. Like there is no point you're gonna go, yeah, that was it, sculpt is done, completely done. Like for the sculpt they did at Weta for the cave troll, that's probably taken years, these months and months and months to do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of feedback rounds back and forth. Design has probably changed quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a long process when you're designing characters and creatures for films or games.
It really is. Here it looks like he doesn't really have defined lips. It's more like a hole which goes into it. So I'll just try to get a little bit of that. Just working across a little bit. Like this, like this is not a refined creature which is like smacking his lips and drinking fine wine. This here is, he's just getting food into his mouth.
Yeah, he's really missing an upper lip, but has a lot of volume up there.
Yeah.
But a lower lip has that flappy boxer up and hitting the face a lot kind of lip.
Exactly. Every single stroke I'm doing also has a purpose. I'm not just randomly going over it. Like it might look like I'm sculpting fast here. I'm just sculpting deliberately. Like this is, you just putting down a stroke because you want volume. Specifically now, I want more volume which goes in here. So then I'll just slowly just work it up with just a few strokes. If the stroke doesn't do anything, then I'm not going to do it. There is no point at all in doing strokes just for doing it. You don't want brush strokes because it's cool. You want volume because the volume helps serve the model. Hold on the Alt key and just bring in some more volume here. I really like to get some more volume in here as well, or to get some more like a cavity in here.
Yeah, that really helps, you know, selling that more Neanderthal look, where you recess the eyes and put them deep in the socket.
Just getting like some heavy wrinkles as well for the eyes.
And this is the kind of thing, like the kind of detail that you know how to put down with more practice. You know, the more studies you do, the more reference you look at, the more you're just going to be exposed to different kinds of faces and see what really sticks out. Because there's always going to be stuff that repeats on a human face. Obviously, there's a lot of individual variation, but you know, the way the cheekbones connect to the back of the ear and the jaw, and the way a brow looks, the basics of how the face works, they will always stay the same. And once you start to master that, that's when you can start to play with the proportions of it and really make it your own.
So it's a little bit hard to sculpt and talk at the same time.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is.
You know, once you start entering that sculpt mode, it's the same thing happens for me. You just tend to focus on the actual sculpting instead.
Yeah.
And sometimes commentary sort of lags a little bit. But that's why we're two here.
One thing which is really nice as well to keep in mind when you're sculpting is that you have bony bits and you have softer bits. So bony bits, this is like the skeleton which goes under. That would be like this kind of stuff. This here is really, really hard, and if you were to hit it, like if you were to feel this on your own head, you would feel it's really soft. Then you have areas like this, like around the eyes, which is really soft. And I tend to treat them very differently. I try to treat it here as like it just looks harder. I have like it was what Morten was talking about before, like you treat it different in terms of stroke quality. Because this is bone. And this part, this is flesh. So I just make this softer and I make this harder, and the contrast between just makes it quite nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything that is soft, you want to treat it softly with your brush and vice versa.
And just looking at the references now, because I mean, this is something you can just keep on going forever with. So you're just looking and seeing if there are some more final things here. I think I just want to move the eyes, shape the eyes a little bit more, and make them a bit more angular. B and V to move into move brush, because he looks a bit droopy now. Mm-hmm. So let's just move his eye up a little bit, and now he looks 10% more evil. If you want to make something look more evil, then you make their eyes really small and more angular. If you want to make it cute, you make them like this. You make them big and...
Yeah, it also has an added bonus that, you know, if you make your eyes smaller like this, they have a tendency to look a little less intelligent sometimes, and especially if you space them further apart. You often see this in cartoons or animated films where evil people also tend to have a smaller pupil that just gives out this evil impression. Bigger pupils obviously looks cuter, and then you approach more anime territory at some point. Yeah. Be careful with that.
If you're doing a character like this as well for a personal project, I wouldn't look too much about specifically at these kind of references. Even if I'm doing a cave troll, sure, I'll still have them up. What I would look at, it would be like gorillas or real world things which are similar to this, because it's so easy to just get stuck in this, and this is not very defined. It's like it's pretty cool, but you want some more specific reference, like real world stuff. So I always try to look at the real world whenever possible. So this is also where we would ideally place in an eye and some teeth as well, but we gotta just finish this at some point. That's gonna add another 45 minutes to it. So really the last thing I would do here is I would break symmetry, and you can see here, he has like a little snarl. So what we can do there, we can go up to transform, activate symmetry, or hit the X key, and now we can just really just like make him nice and snarly. This is going to add quite a lot of character to him. I often put my I put myself in front of a mirror and I just do this kind of stuff. And you're just going like, "Ah."
Yeah, it helps quite a lot to actually have a mirror at your desk.
You can also just, move the one ear up a little bit. Maybe he's been bitten. So he's missing a piece here. Frodo stabbed him in his ear. He had a piercing when he was a teenage rebel.
The rebel troll. But yeah, especially symmetry. Symmetry is something that can really add a lot of character. And even if you add just a slight bit of symmetry, it doesn't actually have to be all that much all the time. Obviously, when you have something that's really messed up like a troll here, you can really play around with how much symmetry you start to break. But even in regular faces, when you do sculpts of men, women, kids, whatever it is, there's a surprising amount of asymmetry in the face, actually.
It's really interesting once we see scans of people. Photos don't really do it justice because the lighting just makes it look weird. Even if it's a perfectly symmetrical face, it just looks weird because of the lighting. But scans really show that, how wonky people are.
Yeah.
So I also prefer to do this, go in and actually sculpt each eye by itself, add some more character to it. Just, really go in and just make this nice and unique. You see here he has some of these wrinkles which go around the nose. Maybe we can add a little bit of that just to add some slight variation to it.
That's again where the standard brush comes in. It's like Henning said, it is an underrated brush, which is ironic because it is the standard brush in ZBrush. But I think because it is that, people tend to go away from it because they are looking for the magic brush solution. But the standard brush has a lot of really good uses.
So yeah, this is pretty much how we sculpt anything. You're starting from very simple piece of geometry. You start just carve in the eyes, you carve in the mouth, you add a little thing here for the ear, and then you just work it up and refine it.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that we have been working with reference throughout the entire thing, and that's not just to help you, that's to help me when sculpting. Because if I were to freestyle something like this, it's just significantly harder to sculpt without reference. So, we keep talking about this in basically all our videos. But if you want to sculpt anything, get some awesome reference and just sculpt with that. And if you're interested in learning more about sculpting, we have a lot of free videos on our YouTube channel where we cover a lot of sculpting. We also have some more premium tutorials as well, which cover sculpting a male and a female face, sculpting very specific eye areas like the eyes, the mouth, the nose, whatever. And that's really relevant, even if you're sculpting characters like a cave troll, whatever it might be. Yeah, so really hope you would enjoy this video. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well to get notified every time a new video.